Kohberger made the wise decision to not attend the restitution hearing in the Ada County Courthouse before Judge Hippler. And it's not for all the reasons that you guys may think. He is a wise young man. Hey everybody, welcome back to A Convict's Thoughts. I'm your favorite ex-convict, I hope. I'm ARHayes, and I appreciate you joining back in as we talk about Bryan Kohberger in the Idaho 4 case. As just yesterday, November 5th of 2025, Bryan Kohberger's restitution hearing, where we saw via Zoom the defense team up against a very just tough mount, with Bill Thompson and Judge Hippler all on one team. Now, Bryan Kohberger made the decision to not attend the restitution hearing. And I knew I would hear all the chirps and the cheeping as to why. Why would Bryan Kohberger not want to get out of his prison cell? Why would he not want to make that trip? Well, ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you just up front, before we dive into the very details as to why Bryan Kohberger would waive his right to this very hearing, let me ask you a very legitimate personal question. If you knew when you woke up in the morning that you were going to not only have one of the most dreadful days at work or school or wherever you might be, but one of the longest feeling days, boredom, tiresome, and of course, drama-filled, would you attend or would you take the bow-out maneuver and just not go? Let me tell you, Bryan Kohberger, this was a no-brainer, ladies and gentlemen, and I get it. So many people say, well, he's housed in the maximum security penitentiary in Idaho, one of the worst penitentiaries in the entire country. He's locked in a cage when he's not in his cell, so he's always just locked down. Yeah, that's very true. He only gets to come out of his cell for a handful of minutes, up to an hour a day, possibly even skipping a day or two, just all depending on the penitentiary's lockdown scenarios. That's how they get around, ladies and gentlemen, allowing each and every inmate to get their 1 hour out per day, is they go through lockdown protocols. Oh, the yard's on lockdown. Oh, we've got an emergency. We're short-staffed. This is how they actually get away with not letting inmates get their full time out for recreation. If you haven't been there, I fully understand it. I give you a big high five because you sure as hell don't want to be. But for someone like myself, I spent plenty of time in these scenarios, and it's just not any fun. But let me tell you, I would skip each and every single hearing, like Bryan Kohberger's restitution hearing, because of the dreadful day that lies ahead if you choose to go. As many of you know, the courtroom began to buzz at about 9 a.m. Pacific West Coast time. Now, that means that Bryan Kohberger, if he decided to attend this very hearing, would have been woken up at about 5:36 a.m. That's right, hours prior to the hearing. Because this is not just a plain and simple walk out of your cell, get cuffed up, hop on the van, and take that little trip to the courthouse. Oh, no, ladies and gentlemen. First, you get on your knees, you put your hands behind your head, you face the back of your cell wall for them to come in and do what's kind of like a cuff and remove forcibly from your cell, except for it's not forcibly, unless you make it that way as an inmate. They come in and they cuff you behind your back. Then they shackle you in your cell, and that's all before you even walk out the slider door of your cell to get on the run and head towards the sally port. They'll put the leg shackles on. They'll put the belly shackles on, because guess what? On a maximum security yard, you're not coming out without the full gamut of lockdown materials. The cuffs, the shackles, everything possible. And in some cases, they even put on some sort of face mouth protector in case you're a spitter or a yeller. They go full out. If your court time is 9 a.m. and you've got a short drive over to the courthouse, you're coming out of your cell at approximately 6 a.m., bright and early, before breakfast is even served. They're going to take you down to the sally port, and guess what you get to endure? You get to sit in another cage, completely shackled and cuffed. Now, they might have moved those cuffs from the back to the front and done the full gamut lock and key shackle in the box in front of you, which does make it a little bit more comfortable. Just a little bit. And at this point, they're going to bring you a sack breakfast. So you don't even get your normal breakfast served to you. Now you just get a bagged breakfast, which typically consists of a little milk, a little bag of cereal, and yeah, maybe an orange. Complete garbage. You might be missing out on the best day of breakfast altogether, pancake morning with a little bit of eggs. Instead, you're getting a sack breakfast. Remember, you're still hours before you're going to court. And guess what? Before you get on to that very van while you're sitting in that cage, they're going to go ahead and strip search you. Like they couldn't have done that in the privacy of your cell. Oh no, they've got to do it. They've got to do it in the very public sally port cage. They just got to embarrass you that little bit more. All because you're leaving the yard. They've got to ensure you're not taking anything with you. Make sure you don't have any weapons. Make sure you're not sneaking a pen. Maybe even a sandwich for later, because you know you're going to get hungry. They do their little strip search and they sit you back in that cage. The boredom hits. As you see your van pull in, you think, oh, it's time to get a rolling. We're going to get a move on. Oh, no. You will sit. You will wait as those transport guards decide they need to have a full-out conversation with the sally port CEOs. They got to talk about the wife. They got to talk about the kids. They got to talk about the dirt that's flying through the air. Nothing important, but it's got to be a full-out conversation. And why not? It's only Bryan Kohberger or any other inmate sitting in the sally port waiting to go to court. Now you're finally on that van. You're finally on that transport. It's only taken an hour and a half from the minute you were extracted from your cell to leave, and now you're still going to arrive to the courthouse way in advance of your hearing. So what do? They pull you in underneath the ground, they bring you back in, and they throw you in an underground cell waiting for the courthouse to pop to life and the employees to show up. And there's nothing but to do but to lay on the cold cement and wait. That's right. Now it's time to try to take a little nap. If you hadn't been woken up out of the blue, you wouldn't have needed this nap. But guess what? It's nap time, and you're going to wait until you're taken into the courtroom. No, you are not taken out of your shackles. No, they do not take off your cuffs. That's mandated to stay on until you get back to the penitentiary yard. They will not be taking those off. But damn if they don't feel as though, even though you've already been strip searched when leaving the penitentiary, you've got to be patted down and searched at least 2 or 3 more times. Maybe not a complete strip search, but trust me, they're going to make sure you don't have anything on you at all. When it is time to be escorted to the courtroom, they're going to do so with about 6 officers around you, even though it legitimately only takes 1 or 2. They're going to overdo it. They're going to make you seem like you are the spectacle of the world, and they're going to escort you like you are the terrorist that's going to take down the entire courthouse in the next 20 minutes. Once into the courtroom, you again get to wait. Now, because you're actually in attendance, that means at least one of your attorneys would have to be in attendance with you as well as the prosecutor. And trust me, for them to have to get drugged to the actual courthouse to endure this type of hearing, they're not going to be in the best of moods. Even the defense attorneys are not going to be all that talkative with you. So Bryan Kohberger, and whether it be Massoff, who did the arguing at this very hearing, or Taylor had to be in presence of Bryan Kohberger, neither one of them would be all that happy and talkative with Bryan Kohberger. Most likely just allowing him to sit in silence while they prepared for the juggernaut of Judge Hippler himself coming into the court. Now, we can kind of hit the fast forward button because we all saw what happened when the arguments transpired in that courtroom. Does Bryan Kohberger have any chance of even being able to say anything in defense of himself? Absolutely not. Silence. Do not speak unless you are asked to speak. And at these type of hearings, Bryan Kohberger would not get a word in, period. But he would sit there shackled and having to hear everything said, not only about him, about his family, about the very money on his books, and about how he owes all of the rest of his life, not only to the penitentiary system, but also his financial rest of his life to the state of Idaho and the victims' families. Not a peep to come from Kohberger. When it's all said and done, whether it goes in your favor or doesn't, only one thing transpires from that point. In a heap of exhaustion and boredom, you were gathered back up by those same transporting officers to be moved back to, well, the holding cell at the courthouse, of course, because you will be there for hours. As you saw, a 20-minute hearing is going to land Kohberger back down into the holding cells until after lunch. He will not be moved back to his prison until after lunch. And guess what? Everybody's going to be eating and eating good, except for Bryan Kohberger. He may get a sack lunch with a sandwich where the bread is a couple of weeks old, the bologna's green. Well, if they really like you, they may throw in a somewhat old and disgusting apple. Not too bad. You might still be able to get a little crunch out of 1 or 2 bites of that before it's mush. And then a little sip of Kool-Aid. Out of the blue, when you've just gotten yourself comfortable in your cell to go back and take a nap, now you hear the shackling and the banging on the walls as the officers from the penitentiary, the transport officers from the penitentiary have arrived, and they're ready to take you. And this time, they're not BSing, because guess what? We're getting closer to their time and being able to go home. So now for the first time all day, they're in a rush. Load you up, get you back to that penitentiary. It only takes about 35, 45 minutes to get back in the Sally Port, as they've got to get out their mirrors and check out every square inch of the outside of the transport van that you're on, as if you had time to actually plant something on this van that would be brought into the penitentiary. But they're going to do their full job. They're going to inspect every single inch and get you signed back into that same prison Sallyport cage of a holding spot, where again, they're going to strip search you. And they're going to just flaunt it for all to see. And typically about this time of the day is when new inmates are coming back. They're coming into the penitentiary, being brought in from the various intake centers, from the medical, from the evaluation centers. Then you got the people that have been out to the dentist, the people who have had court dates in other places. Randomly, you'll have new inmates joining you in adjacent cages. It's like you're in a dog kennel. Each one of you has your own cage to bark in and raise havoc. And guess what? Nobody's paying 2 cents worth of attention to you. They don't care if you have water. They don't care if you need to use the toilet. All they care about is waiting for the clearance from the penitentiary that they can now get you back to your housing unit. Typically, you'll sit in that outside cage for at least another hour, and then you'll be transported back by a whole crew of DOC corrections officers. And guess what? They're ready to go home. They don't want to deal with you. They just want to put you back on your knees, get you to face that wall of your cell so they can get their cuffs and their shackles. They can slam that door in you on the way out. Never once did they have any thought or compassion about the fact you just spent the entirety of your day for a 20-minute hearing to get bashed and yelled at by a judge. Nobody cares that you got woke up at the crack of dawn with very little food in your system for really no reason whatsoever. Nothing went right for you. Nothing got settled. Your lawyers are most likely upset with you. The judge really never liked you to begin with, and now he even dislikes you more. And you pissed off the corrections officers on the run because they had to do paperwork. They had to deal with you. They had to strip search you. They had to go through the whole gamut just for you to go argue restitution. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to know why people don't want to make that trip out of their cell to see the green trees go by the van, it's because of the hassle of the entirety of the day. But even more so, if you legitimately think on that transport van there's a window for you to see those trees come by, the joke's on you, because you're not looking out a window. You're looking at a cold white wall of a moving vehicle with no scenery to be seen. So at the end of the day, Bryan Kohberger made the exact decision just about any legitimate inmate would make. It's not because he wanted to fight the restitution to the point that he wanted to make sure the Gonsalves family didn't get their restitution for the urns. I just really had to get this out there because I did not want to hear the Nancy Graces and the people picking with the mainstream media and all this outside nonsense that's never been there, never done. If you haven't been through a transport experience as an inmate, you would never fully understand. It is the worst experience. Well, I guess any experience in prison could potentially be the worst of your life. But to go argue for 20 minutes over $3,000, that really, legitimately, if it had been handled correctly, the defense would have just signed off on. But because of the prosecution's attempt to whittle away and really cheat the system for additional funds that they were unable to actually argue for, and they even withdrew that argument because they realized that, but they still forced the issue of this very hearing to happen. And it's all about the money. It's all about the money. And Bryan Kohberger, I don't blame you, my man. I would have slept in till breakfast, had myself a nice breakfast, called my family on the phone and said, I wonder how my restitution hearing's going. And guess what? They would have clicked too and said, you know what, young man, I think I'll click on that, Bryan, because I think it's on YouTube right now. I think all eyes are on it. So let me tell you what happened. Stay in your cell as much as you possibly can, Bryan, and you'll be okay. Allow the very workings of people behind the scenes, because I guarantee you it's happening, ladies and gentlemen. People have come to. The evidence is rolled out. Bryan Kohberger can sit idly and quietly right now. Don't go making a visual or anything within the courtroom. Allow those behind the scenes to pick the case apart, find the holes, and potentially one day get you back in that courtroom for a very real reason, and that could potentially be exoneration or a new trial. I'm ARHayes. This is Convict's Thoughts, and I just wanted to bring it to you real. Exactly why Bryan Kohberger did not go to his court hearing for restitution. You have a great day. We'll talk again very soon.